My name is Eric Schmidt. I'm currently the general manager of the software products division at Sun Microsystems. I've been at Sun for about 5 years, and I would like to be a better speaker. I'm completely self-taught as a speaker, and I find that I'm spending more and more time talking to larger and larger groups, many of whom I don't know. So the problem that I'm having is that all the skills that I developed when the group was very small or when I was a researcher don't work for a larger group. I find all the things that you talked about earlier, such as people don't know what you're thinking unless you show it to them. All of those things are just different and unfamiliar to me. For example, the division is now so large that every time I talk to it, it's the largest audience I've ever spoken to. So I view every speech as a challenge. I have no sense of time. I don't know how to organize my speaking stuff. I try to be spontaneous, but because of the nature of the constituencies in the group, the spontaneity might get me into trouble. So there's a concern there. My background is that I have a PhD in computer science and was a researcher at Xerox PARC before joining Sun, which was very small. I live in Los Altos, California, married with two small children. But I'm sort of your typical Silicon Valley workaholic type. Let's see, how's my clock doing? The other thing that I'm interested in is the sense of how you're going to work on not just speaking style but also presenting style. One of the things I've noticed is that as the number of levels of management in the organization get larger, I find that I'm judged by people who never normally interact with me. So, for example, a visual cue, like a frown, is a very, very bad thing to somebody, and I didn't know I was doing it. So I'm quite concerned about working on those things as well.
The most important quality for a manager is?
I think that the absolutely most important quality for a manager is the ability to lead people. When I look at my organization and the people that I have worked with, they all divide into groups. And there's basically leaders and people who can't lead. And leadership is a skill that I don't know how to teach.
I run a little engineering section. You don't get down to our level very often because you're out driving around the Ferrari and the company cafeteria a lot. But we work a lot, many hours. Okay, and we'd like to have access to workstation after hours to be able to implement some of our ideas. And Apple's got them, Virgin Tech. Everybody gives their employees some benefits and stuff. And I'd like to take a Sun 4 home and have that in my house. And I think my engineers would greatly benefit the company. Why don't you give us that expanded flexibility to do that?
Well, every year we have looked at trying to do that. And every year we've discovered that our customers need the workstations, and it's so hard to get enough workstations out to our customer base that we can't get enough to give them to you to take it home. We've always wanted to, but we haven't been able to. I hope that this year we will of course budget them, and hopefully the higher volumes, the lower cost per seat, will allow us to do that, and we'll get into the program gradually.
That's the same thing you said last year. I mean, I wonder, how can you just sit here now, a year later, when you told us just the same thing? I'll just wait until next year. I know what you're going to tell us next year. You don't have enough ramps, right?
Well, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what I said last year, and I might have to say it next year, but I'll try as hard as I can to make the answer be different.
Okay, good.
The most important thing that I learned about myself was that I don't look on television the way I thought I did, since I had never seen myself before. What I learned was that I need to speak much more forcefully, I need to take more pauses, and I need to be much more emphatic while still communicating the basic values that I have. If I look at the day, when I started off, I was very languid or weak in terms of my presenting, and now I feel much more self-confident about speaking to people and making that point. If I continue to do this and I make a point of it, I will get better.
Great. Good. Okay, feedback for Eric. How did he come across?
I think he's absolutely right. I think that the change has been
Very, very good.
I claim my delta's high.
No, things are good. No, but that's-
Voice.
Yeah.
Voice, it's the voice.
The voice picked up.
It's the voice.
Energy picked
Energy,
up.
energy level,
Facial animation, boom, way up.
yeah. So I have it in me, I just have to find it.
And you know, with that goes your credibility. Your credibility goes up as all those other things increase.
Great. Okay, thanks, Eric. Eric, Manny?
It's easier if I tell you a story. So when I was 28, I was at a research lab and I went to Sun. I was 20 years old, and I was hired by some people that I knew, and it's a little startup, it's in one building. Now, I don't know about you, but I have this image of boardrooms where they're thoughtful, they're detailed, they're planning, they're proper. You know, it's a very serious business. After all, I've given up my whole career as a researcher. I've taken a very low salary and all the stock, which is at the moment worthless, and they've got to be busy. So I walk by the boardroom, which is around the corner from my office, and the people are screaming at each other. So loud I can hear it from outside the wall. And I go, holy, I've gone to the wrong place. I don't have a proper board. They're not thoughtful in suits thinking this. And what I learned was there's something about the kind of people who end up in these high-performance organizations that either causes them to scream or causes this conflict, and they need a coach. And that's what I learned from that moment on, and I watched it. I can go on and on about examples of this. But my point is, I have this idea, and maybe you guys do, that as you get higher and higher in organizations, the people get more relaxed, they're more thoughtful, they're more zen, they're more intellectual. This is totally false. In fact, every single one of them is trying to optimize their own self-interest at the expense of everyone else while they're being nice to each other. And the worst cultures are the ones where they don't yell at each other. We had that at Novell. When I was at Novell, we called that the Novell nod. And the Novell nod is, yes, and that means after our meeting is over, I'm going to go try to kill your idea. Right? So this problem has existed for a long time, and I'm sure it exists in plenty of places in New York and plenty of places elsewhere.